The Douglas AC-47 Spooky was the first in a series of gunships developed by the United States Air Force during the Vietnam War. It was designed to provide more firepower than light and medium ground attack aircraft in certain situations when ground forces called for close air support. Design and development. The AC-47 was a United States Air Force C-47 that had been modified by mounting three 7.62 mm General Electric miniguns to fire through two rear window openings and the side cargo door, all on the left side of the aircraft, and the modified craft's primary function was close air support for ground troops. Other armament configurations could also be found on similar C-47-based aircraft around the world. The guns were actuated by control on the pilot's yoke, whereby he could control the guns either individually or together, although gunners were also among the crew to assist with gun failures and similar issues. It could orbit the target 4 hours, providing suppressing fire over an elliptical area approximately 52 yards in diameter, placing around every 2.4 yards during a 3-second burst. The aircraft also carried flares that could drop to illuminate the battleground. The AC-47 had no previous design to gauge how successful it would be because it was the first of its kind. The USAF found itself in a precarious situation when requests for additional gunships began to come in because it simply lacked miniguns to fit additional aircraft after the first two conversions. The next 4 aircraft were equipped with 10 .30 caliber and M2 machine guns. However, these weapons, using World War II and Korean War ammunition stocks, were quickly discovered to jam easily, produce large amounts of gases from firing, and, even in 10 gun groups, only provide the density of fire of a single minigun. All 4 of these aircraft were retrofitted to the standard armament configuration when additional miniguns arrived. The AC-47 initially used Su-11 gun pods that were installed on locally fabricated mounts for the gunship application. Emerson Electric eventually developed the MXU-470 to replace the gun pods, which were also used on subsequent gunships. Operational history. United States Air Force in August 1964. Years of fixed-wing gunship experimentation reached a new peak with Project Tail Chaser under the direction of Captain John C. Simons. This test involved the conversion of a single Convair C-131B to be capable of firing a single GAU-2, a minigun, at a downward angle out of the left side of the aircraft. Even crude grease pencil crosshairs were quickly discovered to enable a pilot flying in a pylon turn to hit a stationary area target with relative accuracy and ease. The Armament Development and Test Center tested the craft at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, but lack of funding soon suspended the tests. In 1964, Captain Ron W. Terry returned from temporary duty in Vietnam as part of an Air Force Systems Command team reviewing all aspects of their operations in counter-insurgency warfare, where he had noted the usefulness of C-47s and C-123s orbiting as flare ships during night attacks on fortified hamlets. He received permission to conduct a live-fire test using the C-131 and revived the side-firing gunship program. By October, Captain Terry's team on the Project Gunship provided a C-47D, which was converted to a similar standard as the Project Tail Chaser aircraft and armed with 3 miniguns, which were initially mounted on locally fabricated mounts, essentially strapped gun pods intended for fixed-wing aircraft onto a mount, allowing them to be fired remotely out the port side. Captain Terry and a testing team arrived at Bien Hoa Air Base Base, South Vietnam, on the 2nd of December 1964, with equipment needed to modify two C-47s. The first test aircraft was ready by the 11th of December, the second by the 15th of December, and both were allocated to the 1st Air Commando Squadron for combat testing. The newly dubbed FC-47 often operated under the radio call sign PUF. Its primary mission involved protecting villages, hamlets, and personnel from mass attacks by VC guerrilla units. PUF's first significant success occurred on the night of 23-24 December 1964. An FC-47 arrived over the Special Forces outpost at Tran Yen in the Mekong Delta just 37 minutes after an air support request, fired 4,500 rounds of ammunition, and broke the Viet Cong attack. The FC-47 was then called to support of 2nd Outpost at Trung Hung, about 20 miles away. The aircraft again blunted the VC attack and forced a retreat. Between 15 and the 26th of December, all the FC-47's 16 combat sorties were successful. On the 8th of February 1965, an FC-47 flying over the Bong Son area of Vietnam's Central Highlands demonstrated its capabilities in the process of blunting a Viet Cong offensive. For over 4 hours, it fired 20,500 rounds into a Viet Cong hilltop position, killing an estimated 300 Viet Cong troops. The early gunship trials were so successful, the second aircraft was returned to the United States early in 1965 to provide crew training. In July 1965, Headquarters USAF ordered TAC to establish an AC-47 squadron. By November 1965, a total of 5 aircraft were operating with the 4th Air Commando Squadron, activated in August as the first operational unit, and by the end of 1965, a total of 26 had been converted. Training Detachment 8, 1st Air Commando Wing, was subsequently established at Forbes AFB, Kansas. In Operation Big Shoot, the 4th AX in Vietnam grew to 20 AC-47s. The 4th AX deployed to Tan Son Nhut Air Base, Vietnam, on the 14th of November 1965. Now using the callsign Spooky. Each of its three 7.62mm miniguns could selectively fire either 50 or 100 rounds per second. It can be seen in action here, cruising in an overhead left-hand orbit at 120 knots airspeed at an altitude of 3,000 feet. The gunship could put a bullet, a glowing red tracer bullet, into every square yard of a football field-sized target in potentially less than 10 seconds, and, as long as its 45 flare and 24,000 round basic load of ammunition held out, it could do this intermittently while loitering over the target 4 hours. In May 1966, the squadron moved north to Nha Trang Air Base to join the newly activated 14th Air Commando Wing. The 3rd Air Commando Squadron was activated at Nha Trang on the 5th of April 1968 as a 2nd AC-47 Squadron, with both squadrons redesignated as Special Operations Squadrons on the 1st of August 1968. Flights of both squadrons were stationed at bases throughout South Vietnam, and one flight of the 4th SOS served at U Duan Royal Thai Air Force Base with the 432nd Tactical Reconnaissance Wing. The superb work of the two AC-47 squadrons, each with 16 AC-47s flown by aircrews younger than the aircraft they flew, was undoubtedly a key contributor to the award of the Presidential Unit Citation to the 14th Air Commando Wing in June 1968. One of the most publicized battles of the Vietnam War was the Siege of Khe San in early 1968, known as Operation Niagara. More than 24,000 tactical and 2,700 B-52 strikes dropped 110,000 tons of ordnance in attacks that averaged over 300 sorties per day. During the 2.5 months of combat in that tiny area, fighters were in the air day and night. At night, AC-47 gunships kept up a constant chatter of fire against enemy troops. During darkness, AC-47 gunships provided illumination against enemy troops. The AC-47D gunship should not be confused with a small number of C-47s which were fitted with electronic equipment in the 1950s. Prior to 1962, these aircraft were designated AC-47D. When a new designation system was adopted in 1962, these became EC-47Ds. The original gunships had been designated FC-47D by the United States Air Force, but with protests from fighter pilots, this designation was changed to AC-47D during 1965. Of the 53 aircraft converted to AC-47 configuration, 41 served in Vietnam and 19 were lost to all causes, 12 in combat. Combat reports indicate that no village or hamlet under Spooky Squadron protection was ever lost, and a plethora of reports from civilians and military personnel were made about AC-47s coming to the rescue and saving the lives. As the United States began Project Gunship 2 and Project Gunship 3, many of the remaining AC-47Ds were transferred to the Vietnam Air Force, the Royal Lao Air Force, and to Cambodia after Prince Sihanouk was deposed in a coup by General Lon Nol. A-1C John L. Levitow, an AC-47 loadmaster with the 3rd SOS, received the Medal of Honor for saving his aircraft, Spooky 71, from destruction on 24 February 1969 during a fire support mission at Long Binh. The aircraft was struck by an 82mm mortar round that inflicted 3,500 shrapnel holes, wounding Levitow 40 times, but he used his body to jettison an armed magnesium flare, which ignited shortly after Levitow ejected it from the aircraft, allowing the AC-47 to return to base. Other air forces. In 2006, Colombia started operating retrofitted AC-47s, where they are known by civilians as Avion Fantasma. They are successfully operated by the Colombian Air Force in counter-insurgency operations in conjunction with R-60 Arpia helicopters and Cessna A-37 Dragonflies against local illegally armed groups. These are 5-bar BT-67s purchased by Colombia with 50 cal GAU-19 machine guns slaved to a forward-looking infrared system. They also have the ability to carry bombs. At least one has been seen fitted with one GAU-19A and a 20mm cannon, most likely a French-made M621. The BT-67 is a variant of the C-47 DC-3 modified by the Bosley Corporation of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. In 1970, the Indonesian Air Force converted a former civilian DC-3. The converted aircraft was armed with 3 50 cal machine guns. During 1975, the Indonesian Air Force used its AC-47 in the Indonesian invasion of East Timor to attack the city of Dili. Later, the aircraft was used in Indonesian military close air support missions in East Timor. A retirement date is unknown. In December 1984 and January 1985, the United States supplied 2 AC-47D gunships to the El Salvador Air Force and trained aircrews to operate the system. The AC-47 gunship carried 3 50 cal machine guns and could loiter and provide heavy firepower for Army operations. As the FAS had long operated C-47s, it was easy for the United States to train pilots and crew to operate the aircraft as a weapons platform. By all accounts, the AC-47 soon became probably the most effective weapon in the FAS arsenal. Variants of the AC-47 based on various iterations of the airframe including the BT-67 have been used by various air forces including those of Laos, Cambodia, South Africa, El Salvador and Rhodesia. A variety of weapons configurations include Gatling guns of numerous types, various medium and heavy machine guns and larger autocannon. The Republic of China Air Force also converted some of its C-47s to gunships. These machines were armed with M2 machine guns taken from retired F-86 operators. Current operators: Colombian Air Force, El Salvador Air Force of El Salvador. Former operators: Cambodia Khmer Air Force, Indonesian Air Force operated a number of ex-civilian C-47 converted into gunship. Laos Royal Lao Air Force, Philippine Air Force, Rhodesian Air Force operated locally built gunship modification of C-47 aircraft. South African Air Force, South Vietnam Air Force, 4th Air Commando Squadron 1964-69. Thailand Royal Thai Air Force. Specifications: General characteristics: crew 7, pilot, co-pilot, navigator, flight engineer, loadmaster and 2 gunners. Length 64 feet 5 in. Wingspan 95 feet 0 in. Height 16 feet 11 in. Wing area 987 feet squared. Empty weight 18,080 pounds. Loaded weight 33,000 pounds. Power plant 2 times Pratt & Amp Whitney R183 radial engines 1,200 horsepower each. Performance: maximum speed 200 knots. Cruise speed 150 knots. Range 1,890 nmi. Service ceiling 24,450 feet. Rate of climb foot per minute. Wing loading 33.4 pounds feet squared. Power mass 0.15 horsepower pound. Armament: guns 3 times 7.62 mm General Electric GAU-2 M134 miniguns 2000 revolutions per minute at 10 times 30 in Browning and M2 machine guns, 48 times Mk24 flares. Aircraft on display: AC-47D Spooky SN4315510 is on display at the Air Commando Park, Hurlburt Field, Florida. AC-47 Spooky is on display at the Air Force Armament Museum at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. In popular culture, German thrash metal band Sodom's 1989 album Agent Orange, revolving largely around Vietnam War themes, features a track named Magic Dragon. The album's cover art drawing also depicts the gunner of an AC-47 in action. The development and early deployment of the AC-47 is the subject of The Goonie Bird by William C. Anderson. Anderson went to Vietnam to research this novel, which features a fictional story written around a number of historical facts. In the film The Green Berets, an AC-47 strike enables the American and South Vietnamese forces to retake their firebase, after losing it in an all-night battle. AC-47 also appears in the first-person shooter Battlefield Vietnam.